everybody, welcome back to the It's Beyond Me podcast. It's your girl Drift Nasty.
Freddie T.
And as y'all know, we are in the month of February, which we have people like Langston Hughes, a writer.
Chris Rock.
He was born, Chris Rock. All of them have birthdays. There's multiple people, celebrities who have birthdays this month.
Michael Jordan.
Valentine's Day. And of course, we all know the whole month is Black History Month. So we kind of want to just touch on our opinions and basically Morgan Freeman's opinion pertaining to Black History Month.
Okay, when we say that, we feel like in my feeling, I agree with Morgan Freeman because, honestly, to everybody, the question lies, did making this month, Black History Month, designating a month for it, make it more important, or did it isolate us in history? Did it actually dwindle the importance of Black people as a whole? Because to me, it kind of did, because at the end of the day, you got to think about it.
It's just saying like that your whole history is basically just dwindled to 1 month, like as if the rest of the year, it's not, relevant, only in February.
I mean, I know some people will be like, oh, you guys are not appreciating the fact that you were given a whole month. But at the end of the day, why is it being signaled out as this is a Black History Month? Why can't it be just American history?
Because it is. Black history, as it stands here in this country, is part of American history. It doesn't matter what color you are. When you live here, your ancestors, the ones who were here, the things that they went through. I mean, I see where it served its purpose way on back in the day, because obviously there was like a fight for freedom going on. So I see where its relevance was then.
I think that the struggle for freedom as Black people and their allies have waged it from the era of slavery to the present is a struggle for freedom that affects every person in this country, and that has global implications as well. So I would like to think of Black History Month not so much as the history of Black people, but rather when we reflect on the struggle for freedom.
So I agree with what Miss Davis said as far as how she doesn't want it to just be a main focus of, okay, well, this is a month to where we're just going to
talk about
point out blackness. Yeah, it just more so of it being about a fight for freedom, which is what it was, which was what I was saying earlier. Like back in the day, these things had a whole different meaning. So even she's saying in her own way, like it should be evolving. The way that we're digesting it and the things that we're taking away from it should evolve with the times. But as far as now, I think that it's okay to progress a little farther than that and just accept that, it's just part of history in general. It doesn't really need to only be brought up and remembered only in February.
Well, I think the problem is we've isolated it to a month to the extent that they don't teach Black history at all in the syllabus until February rolls around. And we try and cram all that history and all that made it into one or two lessons, 3-4 lessons in a month to just, so that we say we did it. The truth of the matter is, if we actually taught it all through the regular year with the rest of American history, because pretty much history builds on each other. The same mistakes we made, since we're trying to cover them up so bad now, and we're destroying all the historical statues, all the words saying that, they celebrate oppressors and all this. At the end of the day, they all are what made us what we are now. So at the end of the day, if we keep on destroying history and trying to act like it never happened and rewriting it, we cover it, and then people don't know not to make those same mistakes.
Yeah, that's the whole purpose of history, to keep history alive, to keep teaching history all year round, not just for a month, not just for a week, whatever holiday that we're talking about. It needs to be talked about all the time, not even just in schools. I mean, yeah, you want to get the gist of it in schools, but I mean, we should be teaching our kids the same things, because when you're instilling like the right way of thinking. You're instilling positive morals into your kids. You're more likely not to repeat the same things later.
And now, how can we teach those if we're not giving examples of the mistakes we made in the past?
Right, we're tearing it down and covering it up, and that's gonna do nothing but leave room later for you to repeat those same horrible. Not gonna say they weren't horrible mistakes. Our history is rooted in a lot of bad things. Let's just keep it real. I mean, yeah, there is some good things. I'm not saying like America is the worst place in the world. Not trying to say that, but I'm just saying like there's a lot of bad things that happen, and the only way that you prevent things from happening again is if you remember what happened, right? Like when you're a kid and you do something bad, well then you got your ass tore up. Then you remember that that's bad and you didn't do it again.
The problem is people forget that the reason we call it history is because it happened in the past. And in the past, we learn from that past. Now, if we keep on erasing it and acting like it never happened, we're just going to repeat the same mistakes. We're just going to do them in a more, maybe even worse than the first time, because of the fact that it's now at an extreme because they don't remember that it happened.
Yep. Got nothing to go off of. You're tearing down all the statues. You're trying to act as if slavery wasn't what it was, which was, and still is to this day. It hasn't stopped here in this country. It isn't going how it was then, but I mean, still across the world, slavery is very much alive and well. If we're not careful with the way that we live here and the way that we do things here and remember things here, then it could very easily come right back over here. And it maybe not black slavery, it could be any color of slavery. So, I mean, I'm just saying, let's just keep it intact.
Read up, obviously, on things that you've said in the past about Dr. Martin Luther King. And you had said this, Dr. Martin Luther King is not a black hero. He is an American hero. Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think if you sort of categorize people, it tends to dilute their importance. Referring to Dr. Martin Luther King as a black hero, it lessens his stature. He's an American hero. He's no less than any other hero we have here. That we don't dilute like that.
You know, here's a heavy question. Where do you feel like we are in race relations in America 50 years after the I Have a Dream speech?
Yeah, I'm like everybody else. I think we've come quite a long way, but we had so far to go.
I just feel like, it's like the other guy saying, it's kind of odd. When I was a kid, I thought Black History Month was cool. I liked it because I was like, oh, we're learning about Black history. But as time went on, all you hear about is the same few people, and it gets boring and it gets jaded. And the truth of the matter is they don't really tell us anything else. I mean, it gets kind of frustrating because it feels like they don't really build on it.
The main people who come up is Martin Luther King for the majority of it. Which, I mean, yeah, he was a great man. I'm not saying that he didn't strive for equality and all that stuff. Yeah, he did. But I'm just saying, like, is that all that happened? Is that all that Black history in America has on its sleeve? No, it doesn't. There was a lot more going on, and it meant a lot more. It should be taught more often and not just boxed in on February. And it shouldn't just be turned into like a blackness thing to where it's just, oh, it's all about race. Let it be about what it was, which was fighting for freedom and equality.
They should celebrate, and if they wanted to be stressed about it's a Black month and all this, why aren't we celebrating our Black authors? Why aren't we celebrating our Black musicians? Why aren't we celebrating our Black sports stars? Why are we just sticking to just one or two pieces of history and calling it a day? Why don't they build on it and actually make it a month that reflects on the accomplishments that Black people as a whole have made and the movement itself has made? That's the part that gets me. It's
the progress of what came from it, not just focusing on back in the negative that it came to fruition to be on. Yeah, you should mention it, but we should be listening to that to say, okay, well, we've come a long way from that. So that way it doesn't just, there's not like this pain or anger that just sits in you from something that's old. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think, I'm not saying that things are great in the country for any race, particularly in black people's lives and things like that, but it's not as bad as it was then. And I mean, I think that more people should start acknowledging that.
And that's the thing, you know, we're not celebrating how far we've come. And that's the whole thing. We're just dwelling on the past and dwelling on the bad aspect of what happened. We officially designated the month, and it officially became, oh, these are the holidays, and it's like being acknowledged by employers and all that. Now it just feels like a regular holiday, like a regular month that every other month has, and I just feel like people don't do. You know, when I was growing up, we'd get together. People would teach each other teach kids about when slaves came from Africa, this, and tell stories that they heard from their great grandmothers and stuff. And it was, you know, it actually made sense. Even for me, coming from Africa and hearing it, I was like, wow.
Okay, so in history class, pretty much, well, when I was in school, which wasn't that long ago, in history class, what they did for Black history is we all got assigned a Black person, a Black historical person, and then we had to do a project on it. So it's just taught long enough for you to do one report on a person, and then it's over.
Somehow, some way, it just got lost and became that generic, over-marketed Hallmark holiday.
And that was a good point that you brought up too, because it made me think of something as far as like it being reduced to like any other holiday. What is any other holiday truly for? See, we personally, you carry what value it has to you, but in general, it's part of the corporation, right? Because this country is a corporation, corporate America. So they profit off of things every holiday. Valentine's Day, candy sales go up, balloon sales, teddy bears. It's like there's things that are specifically there so that certain aspects get sold. Christmas, only certain things, well, a lot of things get bought up during Christmas. Halloween, same thing, candy, costumes. So then you have what happens if Black History Month has become a holiday. Well, then they're selling Black history basically to the Black people, because then when it comes to February, then BET and things like that, they're constantly airing just...
They push certain movies.
Yeah, like there's
push the
Netflix even does it. Like certain things get pushed that they know people are going to be looking for, and then they're profiting off of that. So it's not like it's done out of being genuinely like happy, like genuinely appreciative, or it's not like a real contribute.
Okay, I just put it like they don't really put much thought into it. It's just they play the same movies over and over again. They just play the generic stuff that they know people are gonna watch,
and that's gonna bring them money.
It is what it is. They're not trying to, you know, back in the day it was all about trying to teach kids something. Now they'll play Disney playing the Proud Family, and then you've got they woke now, and you're trying to push some kind of political agenda instead of just pushing straight facts.
Yeah, like there's a lot of those things that get pushed out, but specifically in February, it's like kicked up to a max. So you have to realize that it's all just a gimmick to get your money at the end of the day, or getting views so somebody else gets paid. So if you reduce it to just a holiday, then that's what you reduce history to. If you want to call it and just kind of like make it specific and call it Black history, you can, but in my opinion, it's history. It's history of this country that we should continue to learn about in school. It shouldn't be covered up, and it shouldn't just be reduced to 1 month. That's my whole take on it.
Black History Month you find
Ridiculous.
why?
You're going to relegate my history to a month?
Oh, come on.
What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month? No, come on, tell me.
Well, I'm Jewish.
Okay, which month is Jewish History Month?
There isn't one.
Oh, why not?
Yeah.
Do you want one?
No.
No, I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is American history.
How are we going to get rid of racism until...
Stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man.
And from that little clip of what you just seen Morgan Freeman talk about, that's exactly how I feel about it. It shouldn't be reduced to a month. And even though you don't want to totally lose the racism aspect because you want to learn from that, but the fact of when people are always constantly throwing race up into a situation, if anybody does anything wrong or something, oh, well, they must have been racist, or if you were wronged in some kind of way, well, you were a race first before a human. I understand what he was trying to say. Like, if it's not constantly coming up all the time and it's not constantly like festering in you, that anger isn't always being instilled in you, then you might move past it, right? It's just like a breakup. If you break up with a guy and you're hurt and distraught, and the more that you think about it, and the more that you talk to your sister, your mom, your friend about it, the more you just keep reliving those emotions. But then one day when you wake up and then you're just like, I don't want to feel bad about it anymore, and then you go on with life, you move on, then you stop hurting. It's the same aspect. So I totally 100% agree with what Morgan said.
The way I took it is like, honestly, what he was saying is true, because you know what? A few years back, I'd read an article on GQ, and it said that, it was talking about Canada and how it's considered one of the most diverse places. It's not to say racism doesn't exist there. It's just to say they're more open-minded and diverse in that when you ask a Canadian where are they from, what are they? They'll straight up say, I'm Canadian. Mm-hmm. They don't say white Canadian, black Canadian, or they just say I'm Canadian. And I always thought America would get to that point where you could ask an American, where are you from, or what are you, and they would say, oh, I'm American. The problem is, at this rate, Americans always seem we have to put a label on everything.
Yeah, you have to be specific. That way there's always a divide.
Everybody needs a category. Everybody needs a label. Everybody needs this. Problem with that is it just keeps us segregated and keeps us divided, because at the end of the day, we can't just look at each other and say, what are you? Oh, you're American. No, it's this American, that American. And, and it's crazy.
And, I always had a thing about that, too. I wouldn't necessarily call it a problem. I just look at it like another division thing. Like, if you ask somebody what they are, then they say, I'm Mexican-American. I kind of feel like, you're American, right? I don't see where you have to throw Mexican in it, because Mexico is a country. If you're not from Mexico and you were born in America,
I understand.
Then why wouldn't you just say
I understand
American?
Why some people do it, because I'm African.
You were
born and
there.
bred in Africa, and I moved here. And even if you ask most Africans, even if they're born here, you ask them, what are you? They'll say, I'm African, because it's that pride of where you're from. I accept that. I don't see anything wrong with it. But my thing...
Yeah, I'm not saying anything's wrong with it, but if they weren't born there, then how could you say you were from there?
Well, the problem, because, if you're first generation or second generation, you're going to say you're from there, because you're still acknowledging the plight that your parents made. You're still acknowledging what they went through to bring you here. Because to me, it's insulting when you see a person whose parents came here, had him here, and he acts like he's above them. And you see it a lot. Some immigrant kids act like that. They act like they're above their parents because of the fact that they were born here and their parents are immigrants. And you'll hear them say such things. And it's sad, but it's just, the reason it's pretty much brings us to why this holiday was made. Because this holiday was made to celebrate and to remind people of what we've gone through to get to where we're at. Everybody thinks that by them designating it into a month, it became more important, but it really didn't. Essentially, kids don't hear about slavery or any of that until Black History Month hits. Then all of a sudden, they just quickly grace straight through it. They don't really go into detail about, okay, this was slavery, this was what was going on, this is why it was happening, the significance of American slavery compared to the rest of the world with type of slavery that they had, what was the differences. They don't go into that. All they go into is that, oh, this happened, and in some places they try and say it was what?
People say it's voluntary relocation. Some say
it never existed.
It never existed, and some say that it was just strictly white British people going over and stealing black people and bringing them over to this plot of land to build it up.
And that's
none of those are true.
The problem that's there is they don't really go dive into the whole topic of what really happened. You know, people become so ignorant about it, in that pretty much we just act like it was something that just a little slice of history that just happened. We don't really take part of, you know, all these things led up to the America that we live in now. They don't do that. It's just, oh, well, this is it. In hell, that if you're lucky, if they even get into that detail, some schools won't even touch it.
Mm-hmm. Especially now,
because the way they look at it is, oh, it'll make people, because you got two types of schooling. One school train of thought would say that, you know, we'll teach it and we'll make all white people look like they're the devil. They're just wrong, right? Mm-hmm. And then you've got the other side of it where they teach it, but because they're so scared that people's feelings will get hurt, or it'll come off as like they're trying to guilt trip the kids, so they won't teach it at all. They'll just glide through it, act like it never really happened, and just move on. Nobody can really speak their truth. Everybody has to watch what they say, and everybody has to walk on eggshells.
You have to be politically correct because you might offend somebody. It's absurd. There's nothing that screams freedom about that either, by the way.
Well, it's the same reason that will never, pretty much the era that we're in now, you will never have the Richard Pryors, the Eddie Murphys, or the Dave Chappelles anymore, because at the end of the day, everybody's too scared to make jokes like that.
Yeah.
Everybody's too scared to speak the truth or speak what's going on or make fun of what's going on, because then you're looked at as either a bigot or some type of foe or a racist.
If it's a white person saying, well, no, apparently, because
even
black people can get called racist if they say something against the black people. Yeah. It's crazy.
They fought for the holiday so much that it became just this one concentration, because now everything black was centered into February. The building of what makes America has been Native Americans, Chinese, Irish, black people, Italians, you know, even the French,
and the
British. And you know, people forget that all those played a factor in all of it. Mm-hmm. All the mistakes that were made, all the reasons we left, Americans as a whole. I can't even say we. I'm not American, but as Americans, all the reasons that this country was created, it's all separated into compartmentalized into, okay, this is that, but nobody wants to just sum it up as this is American history. And we want to remove certain things out of history because we just feel like it's just too much. Kids can't take it.
Well, I grew up just fine. It was my history.
It's part of history, and at the same time, if it's too much, it's just will scare kids and stop them from doing those mistakes. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's just the way I feel. And I just ask everybody, do you feel that it as a whole has separated itself from American history, or has it made American history more important, or has it just kind of dwindled down the importance of
the history that pertained to black people?
Or has it really stunted the growth for black people? Because at the end of the day, I kind of feel like it just compartmentalized us into 28 days and made us just this one little topic that nobody wants to talk about.
Yeah, I agree. And don't give Morgan Freeman a hard time. I totally see the wisdom in everything that he said. You might not agree with it, but I personally feels like that's his opinion. He's allowed to have that opinion, and I think that it's actually mighty just.
It's mighty American of him, and I think he's right for saying it. Thanks for coming and joining us at It's Beyond Me. I'm your host, Freddie T.
And your co-host, Drift Nasty. And we'll be seeing y'all again. Like, comment, subscribe.